So another interesting day today. Today via Twitter, I engaged in a bit of a conversation with 1stThird, which they are at 1stThird. That's 1stThird, 1stThird, and they are from Luther Seminary, which is where I go to school. And 1stThird has to do with the first third of life. That's what it stands for. It is early childhood ministry, not just early childhood though, but childhood and then youth, kind of up through like 20 or so, maybe even a little beyond that. I am interested in conversation with them, and in this conversation we talked about future of the church, hashtag future of the church. You can check that out if you're interested. But it's looking at exactly what it sounds like. What is the future? And I know I've made some videos talking about this over the past week or two, and it's just interesting to me to be thinking about this. Now, I, on one hand, as I've talked about, if you've watched it, am interested in where the future of the church is going. Now, this particular part of the conversation that I engaged with is buildings. And I recently heard an idea that sooner, probably than later, buildings that our congregations own are probably going to become more of a liability than they are an asset. And what does that mean for the future? Buildings are high-tech, expensive, large to build, and congregations are spending so much on mortgage payments and updates and upkeep. Could that money be going to ministry outside the walls? And if so, what does that look like? And so that's kind of where that trend of the conversation goes. And how long is it going to be until we start to recognize that maybe these buildings, these big fancy buildings that we're trying to meet in, that all too often are not anywhere near full, are more of a liability than they are anything else? I'm interested in your take as normal as we go forward. And as the discussion continued, we said, what are the steps that we need to go to, and what is the immediate future going to look like? And does the church need to go through a grieving period for what has been lost before they look to the future? Now, my thoughts on that is, yes, the church does need to grieve, but we cannot get bogged down in it. We need to recognize this is where we are now. This is our reality. And now where do we go with that? And not just spend so much time mourning the past that we can't look towards the future. Now, what exactly that's going to continue to look like, I don't know. Now, I made some statements earlier via Twitter and some steps that we could go through to be starting to move forward. I said, first off, we need to come to terms with the fact that the attractional model just doesn't work anymore. Now, I've talked about that before. Knowing that the postmodern culture has killed it. It's not what works. Second step, we need to harness our Lutheran heritage of the priesthood of all believers. We are all called to proclaim the message in our vocations. It's not only up to the pastors. Everyone is called to do that. Step 3 is we need to move outwards. Now, that's tied in with step 2. How do we do that? Well, we harness the fact that we're called to do this in our day-to-day lives. It's not just at church. That's not where this happens. This needs to happen with everyone, wherever they are. Step 3, moving outwards, engage people where they are, because they are not going to come to church. And final step, I said I don't think exists yet. But that doesn't mean that we should sit around waiting. We need to figure out what it is. This conversation has been interesting, thought-provoking. I'm not the only one having it, like I said before. Hashtag future of the church. It may even still be going on Twitter now. This was a few hours ago when I was having this conversation. But continue to have it. It's one that we need to have. If the church is going to have a future, and by that I don't mean kids are the future of the church, because I hate that, but that's a whole nother concept that I'm not going to go into here. If the church is going to have a future, we need to have these conversations. So keep them up.